Welcome to the roastery. Who are you?
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. My name is Henok. I am a brewer by profession, and I run a brewery called Omnipollo, Swedish outfit out of Stockholm, Sundbyberg, a suburb to Stockholm.
Oh, how long have you been working with beer?
I got thrown into beer more or less straight out of university about 15 years ago. And I didn't brew beer at the time, but I kind of realized that you could. So I started out as a home brewer, kind of classic story for a lot of brewery owners. Did that for a couple of years and then decided to try to go pro, which took many years. And we actually opened our first physical brewery 2 years ago. So 13 years of contract brewing at different breweries before that.
So that must have been like 2008, 9.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So I moved to Brussels in 2009 with my wife to be to kind of take a sabbatical, drink beer and visit breweries, and came back with the idea of starting something commercial.
Cool. Yeah, and so we have kind of the same timeline. I founded my first coffee bar 2008. So
awesome.
Time flies.
Yeah, it definitely does.
And our roads crossed, I think it was like 2 years ago for the first time, for real. When because you have connections to Ethiopia and to Adam, Gesha Village.
And Rachel, yeah.
And Rachel, and he came here, and you joined in, and since then we've done like a few collaborations. Tell me more about your relations to especially Gesha Village.
I mean, it was amazing to me. I mean, coffee bears a lot of resemblances to the brewing world, I guess you could call it. And we met. Me and my wife moved to Ethiopia about 5.5 years ago, and in my my middle kids class, there was another kid, and his parents were coffee growers. It turns out that they were very ambitious coffee growers, namely Adam and Rachel from Gesha Village, and they just kind of showed me around their farm, and we got to know them really well. We love those guys, and it kind of opened up what coffee can be to me. I'd had better coffee, but not in that specific way. Going down to the South Sudanese border and seeing this incredible forest that they've built with coffee bushes, in more or less its natural habitat, I think was very, very kind of eye-opening to me. I thought coffee was grown in rows, and it turns out it can also be created in such a beautiful environment. And we spent, a week there, just kind of drinking coffee and sucking in kind of everything I could take part in.
Because they're not only like the pioneers and the history with their Gesha that many people think and are proven to be like the OG, as we said, like the original Gesha that then got brought over to other countries. So it's named Gesha 1931. It's the one that we're gonna drink right now. But they're also extremely progressive. Like they do so much fun and experimental, and it turns out amazing in many ways. And we bought coffee from them for a few years now, even kind of pre-Standout, when Standout only existed as a Facebook group. Alexander bought coffee from them. And for 2 straight years now, it's been like one of the diamonds in our portfolio as well. So we both have the Gesha Village, 1931 Gesha, but also we've been working with their El Bador. And that's the coffee that we now roasted for you. And where is that going to end up?
It's going to end up in a beer. So we have our brewery is in an old deconsecrated church building, and it's a kind of dream project of ours to start our own brewery. Primarily to control the process as much as we can, but also to be able to do spontaneous, highly ambitious projects as they pop up. And in this specific case, we got the opportunity to work with a iconic San Diego brewer called AleSmith. I've been a big fan of them since I started drinking craft beer. And they have a specific beer called Speedway Stout that is infused with coffee. I don't know what coffee they use. It's probably proprietary, but we asked if we could make a version of that beer at the church, and so we're going to our favorite pusher, and that's you guys in Gesha Village, and this coffee is going into that beer, and we're super excited about the beer. We're super excited about the collaboration, and we're always very excited to use these incredible coffees that have been coming our way. We've done, as you mentioned, several collaborations with you guys and with Gesha Village. And every time we do that, it's just a next level thing. You kind of don't want to brew any other coffee beers after you've done that. And I wouldn't have thought that it would have had such a big impact. Because I mean, there's a lot of things happening in beer already, and so allowing the coffee to actually come through, I think, has been one of the challenges that we've tried to really kind of take on, and every time you really feel the difference. So it's amazing.
Cool. So is this something that an everyday person can pick up, or is it like exclusive for Systembolaget, or how where can we drink it and when?
So we export to about 23 countries. So we're pretty widely available. We just closed our web shop for beer. It would have been even more countries if we still had that open, but it will be widely available. Cool. But in very, very small quantities per country, and also probably and hopefully at Systembolaget, the Swedish liquor monopoly, to some extent.
Is it going to be in cans? Or?
It's going to be in cans, 33 cl cans.
And is the label done? Or are you going to kind of reuse to like connect the history to them?
Yeah, partly. We're so Carl Grundin, my colleague, is using parts of that artwork, I think. I still haven't seen it, honestly, but he's working on it right now. I'm excited to see what it turns out like. That beer actually comes in a can in the US now. It didn't used to. It used to come on a 75 cl kind of big bottle. Everything is going in a can these days. Maybe even coffee. I don't know.
We done some experiments here. We pre-grounded and what do you say, sealed them.
Yeah.
At the brewery here.
Yeah.
And I think it has a lot of potential. I know that Lykke does some kind of canning right now. I think the problematic thing for many people, because I think a lot of people thought about it, is the lid. It needs to be like an all open lid.
Okay, yeah.
Because if you have the small like additional drink lid, what is it called? Is it
yeah. I mean, I've never packaged kind of these like full top.
No.
Kind of
So you need that kind of full top open, because otherwise the beans will get stuck. Or in our case, we pre-grounded 63 grams.
Yeah. So
you can just measure up 1 liter of water, and like the connection it makes it quite convenient for people. But then you need like the open, total open.
But it should be, I mean, as a beer package, it's superior to bottles, for example. Less CO2
and then, but I always do. I have this
less oxygen
from Stumptown. They released coffee roasters. They released this like limited edition jar.
Yeah,
that I just think is so beautiful.
It's cool.
And I've been back and forth like googling on Alibaba to find like glass amber jars with big lids, but it's hard to find it, and they are way too expensive to get it into production. But it would be cool.
Has to. If anyone's you guys.
It would be cool to do some of our coffees in jars in some way. Maybe if we one day like open up somewhere, we can have like a recycling system or something like that. But I think visually, and when you get a bag home, usually kind of rip it open, then sometimes hard to close, and it kind of loses its exclusivity
Yeah.
in some way.
Yeah.
But like a traditional jar is so nice to look at.
Well, you have the zip. I mean, the zip bag. You know, I've been getting your coffee. It's like
it
still
works.
looks nice.
Yes, it looks.
Yeah.
And I think the box is really nice. But when you kind of open up a bag, like old bags, they kind of lose some of the magical touch. So something like this, but like a bigger lid. So shout out to a producer who can help us out.
Awesome.
So coffee in the mug. This is the Gesha Village.
To try it.
And I think it has.
Oh wow!
It has a lot of those like original.
Damn, you get thrown back. Honestly, like, I mean, it was such a complete experience.
Yeah.
You know, being in that forest and essentially sleeping under the stars. I mean, it was a very, very nice tent.
Yeah.
But like the idea is, being close to the idea of being close to nature really comes. It's such an intense experience. And seeing how they prepare and coffee on site as kind of in a very casual way, but it being, I mean, it doesn't get more exclusive than that. It's incredible. But just drinking it, throws me back.
That's amazing, because it's this kind of like bouquet of flowers or jasmine-y, intense.
Yeah.
It's and it has. I tend to brew coffees a little bit stronger nowadays. Push up the TDS a bit. I don't know if I'm just getting old, but I think
I'm going the opposite direction.
Yeah. But in these cases, I think like the not perfumey, but it's very intense. It has a super crisp acidity, because that's the thing with Ethiopia. It's so highly elevated as it is as a country.
Yeah.
And so you get this, what's the number one thing you look for in a high quality cup of coffee? And for the first thing that pops up is the quality of the acidity. And it should be like razor sharp, but not like, of course, not sour. And I think like most Ethiopian coffees, especially the one we end up buying, it has everything of that.
I mean, this is it's such a pure experience. It's cool to hear you talk about coffee. I mean, it's hard not to draw parallels between this and beer. Yeah. But I mean, again, this is like you're talking about the bean. The equivalent for us would be to talk about hops, for example, like very, very similar. And the idea of going for hop farm and to going to a coffee grower, it's like bears a lot of resemblances. Like, what are you looking for? Yeah. Pineapple. Like, okay, wow. You know, like, yeah.
But then you have in beer, you have a few more ingredients. But what happened, especially at what we got in last year from Gesha Village, was their mosto processed, where they kind of squeezed coffee cherries, brought out the juice from it, and then fermented or let the beans soak into that. So you can call that an extra ingredient. And also with all the fermenting and anaerobic stuff that happens now, especially with our competition range of coffees, that is another kind of ingredient. And I think it's nice. And then of course we have the way of brewing it, like V60 here, espresso, and so on. So and there has been a lot of debate regarding if you're allowed or not, even though it will taste better, to add stuff at the farm. And we did our first experiment with that with our January subscription, where the Lasso brothers added mandarin peel sometime during the drying process, and it floats all the way into the cup in the end, like small fragments, but there's totally a mandarin taste note in it.
Crazy.
And you're not allowed to compete with it. So even though we launched it as a competition style coffee, we were like, you're not allowed to compete on this, because it's added flavor. And I think it's good that not too many, especially progressive producers, does it, because for an untrained eye or tongue or whatever you call it, it could be quite easy to just, oh my god, because we get samples that are like, in this cup you can find notes of lemongrass, and you're like tasting it, it's like only lemongrass, and then you're like, in the fine notes it's like, we just added some lemongrass and just added some pineapple or whatever. And I think it's especially when we sell the level of coffees that we do, I think it's important to be transparent and not do stuff that are kind of not allowed, especially with the name competition coffee. Can't wait to get the beer. It's going to be so much fun.
Super excited about it. I mean, regarding adding, adjuncts, I think it's a very similar conversation to beer.
Yeah.
Like in Germany, you're not even allowed to add, other stuff than
not allowed.
Yeah, because they have purity laws that stretch back, hundreds of years, and you're essentially not allowed to call it beer if it has anything else than hops, yeast, malt, and water. And I think that that is great because you have the German beer culture because of it. But you also have Belgium where the beer culture is completely different, and you have beer styles that would have never been born where there have been purity laws in the same way. And so there's definitely an ongoing debate on and off.
It's kind of in the end, you want to drink something that you enjoy to the maximum.
Yeah.
But then it's like,
as long as you know what it is, I think.
Of course. You need to know what it is.
What are you getting into?
Yes. And we get questions because our coffee could cost like 10 or 100 times more than the original, whatever you get on the grocery store coffee. And I try to explain it as people who are willing to try it out, they also usually have a huge interest in it, like knowledge. They dreamed about trying something from Gesha Village for years, and then the price of the box is literally nothing compared to their like hours on YouTube or whatever, like dreaming of, or had it at a tasting somewhere. Now they get their hands on it. And I think it's totally the same with beer, and of course with wine and stuff, because people, oh, can you buy a bottle of wine for X amount of this?
Yeah.
And like, because you fulfill your interest, and that's the thing, kind of, you if you're like a music nerd or whatever, you fulfill that dream, and of course that lowers the price of the end product.
It's a pretty cheap luxury, honestly. Like, as you said, I mean, you're getting an experience that you've been waiting for months for something that's, peanuts in terms of money, relatively speaking. And so, and
totally especially agree. If you kind of go abroad, you're like, because we have coffee tourists now knocking on the door, and we're like, we're not open, but come in, of course. And they're like, I traveled from Hong Kong and I saw you on Google, and can I come in? And like, oh, sure, yeah. And then like 1 hour later, sometimes ends up as a pod or just a nice conversation, or they like, I really wanted to start selling to the multi-shop roasters in Hong Kong, and can we do something? And
totally amazing.
And I remember that back during my days at Drop Coffee, like the coffee tourism is so strong, and I love the way, if you go to a new city, my number one recommendation is just like, if you're interested in coffee, go to the best coffee shop that you find on TripAdvisor or whatever, and then you ask the baristas where to go next, and then you have like a local tour from Stockholm. And we were on a tour yesterday, me and Ella, to check out like the Stockholm coffee scene, and it's very good, and you can really find like good quality coffee, but we need more places. There's so few, because people come here and they're like, oh yeah, I want to drop this morning, and we're going to Johan Nyström and then to Pascal. Where should I go next? And I'm like,
places all over.
You have Slow Hands and Volcan, maybe like 1 or 2 more places. I may be forgetting someone, but still on the amount of cafes out there, like, should be so way more.
It's sudden explosion probably gonna happen, waiting to happen. But I agree. I mean, you kind of go back to the same places over and over again when it comes to breweries as well, and beer bars. It's exciting. It's exciting to see at least that there is a scene, and that's right. It seems to be thriving.
So if you're into beer and you're in Stockholm, quickly before we're gonna wrap this up, tell me about the church.
So the church is open Wednesdays to Sundays, from 3 in the afternoon on a Friday, for example, is a nice time to come. We do lunch on Saturdays. Otherwise, it's from 5 in the afternoon. And we do beer and burgers. Very kind of like straightforward concept. but ambitious beers, ambitious burgers.
And it is your brewery.
That's right.
And why it's called a church?
Well, it's in an old deconsecrated church building. It looks like a church. No other church-like features than that.
Yeah.
But we put a German brew kit in there that I've been dreaming to get my hands on for years. We brew 5 days a week there.
And you see it's like full transparency.
It's like an
drink
amphitheater.
Beer and it's like an amphitheater.
It's like an amphitheater. So you sit on the top deck where there's a bar, about 100 seats, and overlooking the brewery, which I think is, as a home brewer turned and a pro turned brewery owner, I think just the idea of opening up and showing people how beer is made, I couldn't find a better space for that.
It's
honestly.
beautiful. So I recommend everyone.
Super
I'm gonna link everything through the video. I know you have a meeting. You were like, "Åsa, can we reschedule?"
This is important. I mean, again, like, we're so incredibly grateful to be able to work with you guys and with Gesha Village. Incredible product, and it's a dream come true to be able to like make these beers. We don't make essentially any money off of these beers, but it's as a geek, this is why we do what we do.
This is what kind of how you, like you said, you went from like being a home brewer to a semi-pro, and now like a brewery owner. Like, I think this is to bring it all back again, like being in the kitchen, as we have people buying some greens from us, like just shoving it into the oven and like, do you have any tips and tricks on how to do this? And
that's
like,
it.
Don't burn yourself.
That's it.
And I think you need to do things like this to especially keep the passion up.
Definitely. I think the brew team appreciate that we kind of sidestep. We focus mostly on hoppy beer and lager at the church. We love drinking those beers, but it's also kind of what the public wants, to be honest. And so when we do dive into these super special projects, I think it challenges and hopefully stimulates the brew team as well. It's exciting.
Nice. I think you should definitely come back one day and maybe we can have like a beer tasting. It would be cool.
Would be amazing.
To do a
come
podcast.
Back when the beer's ready.
Yes, let's say that. Thank you so much, Henok. It's been a pleasure having you. And we'll this will get up on YouTube and Instagram and wherever you want to put it. So bring this to the office and don't forget your coffee when you leave.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.